From the dangerous criminal gangs robbing tourists at the Eiffel Tower to the brutal reality of what it's like to visit Dracula's castle in Romania, here are 10 hard-hitting examples of expectation versus reality. Number 10. The Great Pyramids of Giza. The Great Pyramids of Giza are a little less exotic than a lot of people realize. Many people visit Egypt expecting to see something totally unbelievable, totally foreign, and totally bizarre. The expectation is to see huge pyramids, an ancient culture, the legendary Sphinx, and all of it surrounded by a barren desert. But the truth about this wonder of the ancient world is a little bit disappointing. For example, it's not quite as dramatic as pictures make it out to be. The harsh reality is that there's a Pizza Hut directly across the street from the largest pyramid, and you can actually see the pyramids while eating your American pizza. There's also construction everywhere, as the city of Giza is basically built right outside of the pyramids. And besides the ruined atmosphere from the fast food chains and construction projects, you have to deal with hecklers, salesmen following you during the trip and trying to sell you things, and people literally begging you for money on the steps of the pyramid. It's all part of the experience, but the reality is definitely far from the expectation. Number 9. The Great Wall of China. A visit to the Great Wall of China is on a lot of people's bucket lists, and while the pictures on Instagram you see show a marvelous wall devoid of tourists, completely empty and in the middle of nowhere, the reality is quite a bit different. Of course, it is a majestic relic from the past, but it's not going to live up to your expectations when you visit. Considering China itself has a population of about 1.3 billion people, it's absolutely filled with tourists every single day of the year. If you were hoping to get a snapshot of yourself alone on the Great Wall of China, think again. You're going to be photobombed by hundreds of tourists all trying to get the perfect photo. Additionally, much of the wall is actually in ruins. There are only a few sections that are still in good condition, and there are even fewer sections that are open to public visitors. If you don't know what you're doing, you could end up visiting a section of the wall that's damaged, ugly, or even dangerous. You certainly don't want to cross any barriers into closed areas of the monument, or you could get in trouble with the police. That's not at all what you had expected when you decided to fly across the entire world to visit the amazing wonder of the world. Number 8. Paris and the Eiffel Tower. Paris is the love capital of the world, and the Eiffel Tower is one of the most impressive monuments anywhere on Earth. Paris also happens to be one of the most visited cities by international tourists. However, depending on who you ask, Paris is no fun to visit. Many tourists arrive in Paris and have their expectations dashed almost immediately. The Paris Underground Metro is known for being dangerous if you're a woman alone, and it's notoriously disgusting no matter who you are. Paris can also be deadly. Depending on which neighborhood you walk into, you could have your bags and your belongings stolen in the blink of an eye. And then there is the Eiffel Tower itself. When you visit this iconic marvel, one of the first things you'll notice is that there are signs everywhere warning you of pickpockets. There are apparently organized criminals who target tourists at the Eiffel Tower, stealing wallets and bags from unsuspecting foreigners as they try to enjoy the sights. Many tourists enter Paris with expectations of glamour and romance and leave missing their wallet. Have you ever been to Paris? Was it everything you thought it would be? Or was it a little less beautiful and romantic than you'd expected? Tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Then remember to subscribe to American Eye if you haven't already for more amazing videos just like this one. Number 7. The Venice Gondolas. Taking a romantic ride on a gondola through the Venice canals is a dream come true for many. However, sometimes expectations turn to tragedy when things go horribly wrong. The canals of Venice are actually dangerous, clogged with boats, and burdened by way too many tourists. It's not quite all you'd hope for if you were going there on vacation. And if you don't believe me, just take a look at this incident a couple of years ago when a tourist was crushed to death while riding a gondola in the famous Grand Canal in Venice. The man was from Germany. He was only 50 years old and he was on vacation with his wife and children. They were all inside the gondola when it collided with a water bus. Water buses carry people through the canals of the city just like an ordinary city bus, only in the water. The bus had apparently not seen the gondola, and the collision resulted in the German man dying and his 3-year-old daughter being sent to the hospital for head injuries. According to the Venice Fire Chief of Staff, the German father had been crushed between the two vessels. The mayor of Venice made a public statement saying that he was very sad about what had happened, but that doesn't change the fact that it happened. The BBC reported that previous to the German's death, there was another incident in which 4 Spanish tourists were tossed into the water after a similar gondola accident. Suffice it to say, nobody expects or wants to die in a Venetian gondola. Number 6. The Death of Maya Bay. Sometimes movies can be blamed for exaggerated expectations. When the film The Beach came out in 2000 starring Leonardo DiCaprio, the Thailand beach vacation became all the craze. People were flying into the country and going to the Maya Bay, the beach made famous in the movie, expecting it to be exactly like it was shown in the film. Tourists expected clear waters, a secluded hideaway from the busier beaches, and the experience of a lifetime. What they got instead was a crowd of about 5,000 people a day, turning the small cove into a trash pile. There were boats, tourists everywhere, everyone was drunk, and it was a great big disaster. When you turn a natural place of secluded beauty into a permanent spring break party, you run into a lot of problems. The reality of Maya Bay was that in June of 2018 it had to be closed because the tourists were having such a devastating impact on the wildlife. Nature needed some time to recover. According to the director of Thailand's National Parks Department, Maya Bay was set to be closed from between 2018 and 2021, and there will be a new limit restricting daily visitor numbers when it reopens. Only around 1,200 people will be allowed in per day, as opposed to the 5,000 previous. According to CNN, in 2018, the small, supposedly secret cove from the movie had 2.5 million visitors. Number 5. The disappointment of Stonehenge. Stonehenge has been called by some people the biggest disappointment of the ancient world. It's the most well-known Neolithic construction on Earth, and when you're standing right in front of it, it really looks just like a pile of rocks beside a highway. The expectation for someone visiting Stonehenge is to witness the sun setting over the rocks in a beautiful and remote part of England. Instead, Stonehenge is packed full of people, it's surrounded by stanchions like you're lining up to buy popcorn, and it's right beside a highway. The highway is perhaps the most brutal reality faced by visitors to Stonehenge, as it really is right beside the ancient monoliths. It's funny how modern life doesn't even leave ancient curiosities and monuments like Stonehenge alone. You can't escape the hustle and bustle of traffic here. In fact, you won't hear the fluttering of birds or the whisper of the ancient builders. Instead, all you'll hear is the sound of traffic as commuters head to work. But don't worry, when it's time to leave, your tour guide will be sure to usher you through the visitor center where you can pick up all your necessary souvenirs. Number 4. The Peak of Everest. When a person sets out to conquer Mount Everest, the expectation is that they will climb the tallest peak in the world and stand with themselves and their team at the highest point on Earth, drenched in victory. Unfortunately, the reality is vastly different from the expectation. In 2019, a photo was taken at the peak of Everest that shocked the world. There were about 320 people stuck in a lineup trying to reach the peak of the mountain. There was such a large backlog of people waiting to reach the very top that someone actually died. Don Cash reached the summit but was forced to wait over 2 hours in a lineup to get back down from the mountain, after everyone had desperately lined up to get their own pictures of them at the top. Because Don Cash had waited so long in a place where the oxygen was so thin, he passed out. Even with the help of his 2 Sherpas performing CPR, he still died. It was an unfortunate tragedy and may have been avoided had Don and his Sherpas not been stuck in a literal traffic jam at the top of the mountain. This is the last thing anyone expects when scaling Mount Everest. Number 3. Japan's bamboo forest. You may not know it, but chances are you've seen a picture of Japan's famous bamboo forest. It's actually known as the Arashiyama Bamboo Grove, and it's located near the Japanese city of Kyoto. The iconic image of the bamboo walls can be seen on shower curtains, bathing suits, bags, desktop wallpapers, notebooks, and so much more. It's an image of relaxation and natural beauty. But unfortunately for those seeking a first-hand look at the famous forest, it's basically impossible. The Arashiyama Bamboo Grove is one of the most tourist-heavy places in Japan. The travel photos online of a solo woman walking peacefully through the grove is an absolute farce, and it's almost certainly photoshopped. The expectation here is to have a peaceful walk through a place that millions of people unwittingly have as the background on their computer. The reality is that the bamboo forest is not nearly as bright and colorful as photos suggest. The bamboo forest itself is tiny and takes only a couple of minutes to walk through, and considering almost 5 million tourists visited Kyoto in November of 2019 alone, according to CNBC, there's literally zero chance of you getting a solo picture without Photoshop. Number 2. Dracula's Castle. Dracula's Castle in Romania has been called the most overrated tourist attraction in the country, and for good reason. Those visiting Transylvania with the hopes of getting close to the heart of the vampire legends and the castle lived in by Lord Dracula himself are in for a rude awakening. Bran Castle has been touted by the Romanians as the inspiration for Bram Stoker's legendary novel Dracula. But the hard truth here is that Dracula had nothing to do with Bran Castle. It wasn't even the inspiration for Bram Stoker's book. That was a different place called Mount Izovorul, nowhere near Bran and nowhere near any castles. Nobody actually knows who decided Bran Castle would be involved with vampires, but all of it is a complete lie. Then there's the second lie. Bran Castle is supposed to be one of the homes of Vlad Tepes, the villainous ruler of ancient Wallachia who impaled people. Vlad Tepes is often associated with Dracula, even though Bram Stoker never made a connection between the two. Visitors to the castle will be surprised when they find out Vlad never even lived in Bran Castle and had merely been imprisoned there for a few days. In the end, tourists expecting a creepy castle steeped in vampire history will get a boring castle that's not even a little bit creepy and that has absolutely no relation to vampires at all. Number 1. Las Vegas. Las Vegas is wildly different in real life from how it's portrayed in the movies. Those taking a trip to Las Vegas and expecting a hangover experience are often disappointed when the reality is that Vegas is hot, there are actually rules, and you can't have a tiger in your hotel room. And also it's jam-packed full of visitors. The Vegas Strip is crowded, it's very expensive to do anything, and just trying to see a show like Cirque du Soleil can turn into an absolute nightmare. In the end, many people who hope for an extravagant getaway in Las Vegas end up broke and hunched over a slot machine at 3 o'clock in the morning, wondering what went wrong. If you have enough money though, you can avoid all that and have a luxury vacation. But normal folks are simply not going to get the opportunity to experience the high-end parts of Las Vegas. Yet again, the rich get unique experiences and the everyday people who help keep them rich get the short end of the stick. Have you visited any of these places? If so, let me know what it was like in the comments down below. Thanks for watching American Eye, and if you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe for more amazing videos just like this one right here on American Eye.